2022 proved to be a tense year for Turkiye-Greece relations, and it seems unlikely that things will calm down anytime soon. Greek media recently reported that Athens will extend its territorial waters to 12 nautical miles to the south and west of Crete Island. But maritime borders aren't the only issue between the two countries. In May, Athens gave the U.S. access to 3 more Greek military bases and sent armored U.S. vehicles to Lesvos and Samos. Later that month, Mitsotakis visited Washington, where he called on the U.S. to block the sale of F-16 jets to Turkey. Another hurdle between the two NATO allies is Athens' illegal pushbacks in the Aegean. So will 2023 be any different for Greece-Turkey relations? Let's take a look at this report. And to further discuss Turkiye-Greece ties in the past year and the path ahead, joining me now from Ankara is Nilhan Acikalin. She is an assistant professor at Ankara Hacı Bayram University. And Yucel Acer, she is a professor of international law and researcher at SETA Foundation. And from Washington, D.C., Sean Michael Cox, he is a senior advisor at the Global Policy Institute. A warm welcome to you all, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Suay, tensions have been flaring between Turkey and Greece over the militarization of the Aegean Islands and a host of other issues. And we all remember that the two countries came to the brink of war in 2020, which was later de-escalated by the interventions of the United States and the European Union. So what's the shape of relations right now? How tense are they?
Thanks for the question. Unfortunately, the bilateral relations between Turkey and Greece was a downward during the last year. And as you said, that we have a common problems that we unfortunately haven't found a solution yet. And of course, the last crisis related with the nautical mills of the Greece decision expansion to the 12 mills became the new crisis between the two countries. And it seems that unfortunately, the trends of negative relations between the Turkey and Greece will continue in this year, at least in the first quarter.
So as Suay mentioned, Yucel, Greek media has recently reported that the Athens administration is planning to extend its territorial waters to 12 miles in the Aegean. So how serious is the situation, and why do you think Greece is escalating tensions?
In 2021, Greece extended its territorial waters in Ionian Sea, but had promised to extend its territorial waters around island of Crete. That's not going to be a problem if Greece is going to extend the territorial waters of Greece in the south rather than in the north. So it's not going to be a problem because it's not going to be in the Aegean Sea. But if it covers the north side of the Greek island of Crete, I think that's going to be a serious problem. As you know, Turkey has been, persistently objecting to any act of extending territorial waters in the Aegean Sea, and it would probably cause a very serious problem between two countries if it happens.
So, Sean, upon these reports, Turkey's Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu has warned Greece's actions will have severe consequences. What kind of consequences are we likely to see if they really extended the territorial waters?
Well, the most likely consequences, at least perceived by politicians and government officials here in Washington and by Western European leaders, is just ratcheting up of tensions, a lack of cooperation within the context of NATO, lack of any further progress in bilateral talks. As has been noted previously, 2022 was quite a tense year for relations between Greece and Turkey, with each government raising issues with the actions of others, particularly when it comes to violations of airspace, violations of coastal areas as well, in April of 2022, in August of 2022, and in December of 2022. And what is seen is that, for example, with the lack of cooperation of two key NATO members in the southeastern region, is that countries like the United States will probably focus efforts in other areas to address concerns and issues regarding security with Russia, growing Chinese interest in the Mediterranean, and the potential is for Turkey and Greece to be sidelined by these. So Turkey and Greece, the actions that they're taking with each other are impacting overall security in the Eastern Mediterranean.
So, Suay, why have Turkey and Greece returned to their policy of aggression against one another at a time, as Sean just mentioned, when Russia's war on Ukraine has made the NATO alliance unity all the more urgent?
I can say that the tension between the two countries have, of course, some other structural problems since then the Turkey and the Greece got their independence. But of course, it depends on the last geopolitical changings, and the Russian-Ukrainian war also changed the regional dynamics in the Aegean coast as well. And of course, establishing the American base in Greece against the Russia create also another tension between the two countries, because the Americans suggested that these bases and the militarization of the bases of the Greek islands against the Russia, but the Turkeys objected this.
So do you believe that this latest spike in tensions somehow linked to the expanded military agreement between the United States and Greece?
Actually, it depends on the last years and the last 2 years. The Americans established more than 12 bases in different islands and also in the different parts of the Greece. That's why Turkey take it as a threat, a very close threat when it comes to the geographical proximity.
So do you believe that this kind of emboldened the Athens administration?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So another sticking issue, Yucel, is Greece's militarization of the Aegean islands. What's the Greek reasoning behind this?
I think there is a traditional Greek policy towards Turkey, which is firmly based on the assumption that Turkey is a threat to Aegean Sea and Greece as a whole. That's an assumption which is quite traditional. Based on this, I think Greece has been trying to take the advantage of, relatively closer relations between Turkey and Russia during this, Russian aggression against Ukraine. That's why the relations became even worse since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. And taking this advantage of accusing Turkey as not properly being a NATO ally, Greece has also been trying to do some concrete steps in the agency, like, escalating the militarization of Greek Aegean islands in the Eastern Aegean Sea, which are clearly demilitarized by international agreements. I think that's the situation that Greece is trying to take advantage of, doing these kind of concrete steps against Turkey.
So, Sean, what really happens if it extended its territorial waters? Because, how sustainable it is for Greece to claim direct sovereignty over 72% of the Aegean? Is an open conflict possible now?
It's unlikely that an open conflict would break out. What we're going to see is an escalation of rhetoric on both sides. Turkey has legitimate claims to its territorial waters. Greece has legitimate claims too. This is something that needs to be negotiated. Part of the problem in the actions that Greece has taken over the last 2 years has been the fact that United States Congress and former President Trump signed into law the Eastern Mediterranean Energy and Security Act. This was in 2019. And this focused on developing closer relations in the energy sector and security ties between Greece, the United States, Cyprus, and Israel, conspicuously leaving out Turkey from this process. We can see a direct result of that is Greece has taken further actions, although they have not been telegraphing these actions. What's been interesting, what we have been seeing in recent months is that the actions that Greece has been taking have been somewhat under the radar, so to speak, and they've been called out by the government of Turkey, and legitimately so. What we tend to see on the opposite side is Greek media ratcheting up the rhetoric that they use against the actions of Turkey in response to the Greek government's acts, but the Greek government has been conspicuously silent in much of this.
So, Suay, is this latest inflammatory rhetoric somehow linked to Turkey's recent maritime deal and carbon exploration deal agreements with Libya?
Turkey signed the Libya agreement under the Blue Homeland Doctrine of the Turkish foreign policy that was primarily based on the Turkey's legal rights in Aegean coast as well as the Mediterranean Sea. So I didn't see as an inflammatory position or the element between the Turkey and Greece relations, but this is a kind of the Turkey's clear position how Turkey will defend its own rights in Aegean coast and the Mediterranean Sea under its own foreign policy.
So in response to Turkey's maritime deal, Yucel, with Libya, Egypt and Greece, as Sean just mentioned, have also signed a maritime deal creating an exclusive economic zone for oil and gas drilling. How would that complicate matters in the region?
I think these kind of facts by Greece and Egypt have complicated even further in the situation in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, because now we have more conflicting international maritime delimitation agreements in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Unfortunately, Egypt is not helping, to ease the situation, rather than, but quite versa. Greece has been trying to escalate the situation, I think, because I have seen a recent, decision by Egypt presidency, declaring a maritime boundary towards Libya, which again disregards the Turkish-Libyan agreement of maritime delimitation. These kind of activities are actually making the situation even more complicated. That's why the Turkish president called all parties surrounding the Eastern Mediterranean Sea come together to negotiate jointly to try to find a better and more suitable solutions to maritime issues in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea.
So, Sean, how would Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Israel, and Egypt, which backed Greece in 2020 Eastern Mediterranean tensions and have recently looked to repair their ties with Turkey, act in this crisis?
I don't think these countries would take a particularly strong stance one way or the other, because honestly, it's to their advantage. Any kind of tension in the Eastern Mediterranean, particularly over the issue of accessing energy underneath the Mediterranean Sea, only advantages those countries that have already well-developed energy sectors. It would make Europe, for example, more reliant on energy from the Middle East if there is conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean and the development of energy resources there moves at a much slower pace while negotiations are being discussed between countries that are in conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean. So they may take sides, but they won't actively do anything to help broker a deal or to help settle the situation. If there's anyone who's going to get involved in this, it will be a country like the United States or other countries in Western Europe that have issues with the security, issues with migration, issues with economic development in the Eastern Mediterranean.
But Sean, hasn't Russia's attack on Ukraine pushed these countries to realign themselves?
One would think that the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia would in fact push these countries to work together, to cooperate, to build up a type of independence against energy needs that they have traditionally from Russia. But it's not an instantaneous process, and by instantaneous, I'm talking over months. These are conflicts that have existed over years, if not decades, and settling these issues requires subtlety. It requires understanding different nuances and the perspectives of different countries. What we have to get through is all of the rhetoric for this to find out what the legitimate concerns in fact are and how those legitimate concerns can be addressed without the interference of outside countries, without the interference of media that tends to inflame the situation.
So would you agree with Sean, or could Turkey's normalization with those countries help break its isolation in the Eastern Mediterranean?
I think you are quite right to say that there have been an attempt to isolate Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, especially by Greece and Egypt in recent years. That makes some progress on behalf of these countries, but at the moment, as Turkey is trying to repair the relations with some other Eastern Mediterranean countries like, Israel and also Egypt, including Egypt, I think that would definitely help the ease of situation in the near future, considering that there are, joint or common interests, especially in the area of energy resources. Mm-hmm. That's why Israel has been trying to settle its maritime disputes with Lebanon and also Greek side of Cyprus, island of Cyprus. All of them are actually showing that there are serious common interests for all countries in the Eastern Mediterranean for the energy purposes at least. And political relations, as the political relations increase and develop, I'm sure that it will help to settle the maritime disputes in the Eastern Mediterranean. Not maybe in the near future, but probably in the midterm future, we will see that these kind of disputes would be discussed more seriously by related countries.
So Suay, what other external factors are fueling tensions between the two? I mean, how does the EU and US's supportive attitude towards Greece has been playing out so far?
Starting with the European Union, we saw a different attitude compared to the 2020 when the Germany has a chair of the EU presidency. But especially the Russian-Ukrainian war, EU seems to be just try to deal with their own energy crisis and partially the other regional crisis that source from the war. However, a few days ago, the Germany Minister of Foreign Affairs Bayram clearly tweeted that they mostly supported the Greece position. It's not surprising, but it's normal. On the other hand, as I told before, the American position seems to be more determinant role between the two countries' relations, because when we look over the history of the bilateral relations, especially being a member of the NATO, seems to be more a stabilizing role in the Turkey and the Greece relations until now. And that's why these two actors unsurprisingly supported the Greece positions, especially the nautical miles issues and of course the militarization of the Greek islands, which is the violation of international law. So in summary, if we look over the external actors, unfortunately, any of them doesn't help two countries' relations going to positive way in soon.
So, Sean, this past year, Greece and France also signed a massive defense deal, which included a defense assistance clause providing for the immediate military assistance of France to Greece and vice versa in the event of an attack by a third country, even if that country is a NATO member. So is this a dangerous arrangement for the well-being of NATO? What are your thoughts on that?
Anything that brings conflict between different NATO members has the potential to be dangerous, and it's something that other countries can exploit, like Russia, for example. Russia is very happy to see this kind of conflict, and Russia will take active actions to exploit any cracks in the NATO facade. So France and Greece coming to an accord such as this, where it does not specifically eliminate the potential of conflict between NATO allies, is dangerous.
So, on the other hand, we have also the Cyprus issue, Yucel. What do you make of the U.S. decision to lift the arms embargoes on southern Cyprus? I mean, was that a calculated move by Washington, and has it strengthened Greece's position against Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean?
I think it's a calculated policy of United States towards Turkey. Recently, we know that it's quite clear that the two countries, Turkey and the United States, having some disagreements over several issues, including Syria and Russian issue and Libya, or many other issues, including the Eastern Mediterranean. And I think what the United States is trying to do is to, in a sense, squeeze Turkey by, applying a kind of pressure on Turkey towards, changing its foreign policy, at least on certain issues. That's why the change of policy in the United States against the Greek Cypriots on the island are actually clearly calculated policy, and it's directed against Turkey in order to make a change in the Turkish foreign policy, at least on certain issues.
But we know that the U.S. made this decision on the grounds that the South kept its ports close to the Russian ships. So could this lead to Russia's recognition of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, or it's a too far-fetched target?
There is a possibility, in my perception. Of course, there is a possibility, because the things are actually getting even more serious between the United States and Russia. And I just estimate that there are more tension and more serious tension between two countries, Russia and the United States. That's why I just believe that Russia is going to take some even more serious steps against the United States and against Western countries. One of them could be, recognizing Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus as a retaliation of Russia against the U.S. policy on the Greeks on the island.
So, Sean, how has Russia's attack on Ukraine ushered in new risks and opportunities for Turkey and Greece to pursue their contrasting goals in the wider region?
Well, one of the things that the Russian conflict has done has highlighted that the whole area of the Black Sea, the Eastern Mediterranean, has potential volatility that can impact the rest of the world, particularly with Russian domination in the Black Sea and Russia's historical interest of gaining access to the Mediterranean, their ongoing relations with Syria, the strengthening of their relations with Syria, and also them sort of introducing China to the Eastern Mediterranean as well. Turkey and Greece should come to the realization that their internal conflict fails to lead to any kind of settlement and development of positive relations in the Eastern Mediterranean. They could be sidelined by other countries who are newly introduced to the Eastern Mediterranean, such as China, and can take a dominant role through the Belt and Road Initiative, for example. So,
and last question, Suay, where is this relationship headed? Is it going to get worse since both countries are headed for elections this year?
It is not easy to predict how it will be going, but at least I can say that depends on the last move of the Greece. It seems that unfortunately these negative relations trends will be continued at least the first quarter of the 2023.
All right, Suay, Yucel and Sean, unfortunately we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.